I'm 30 hours into The Outer Worlds 2, and here's 9 things I really wish I knew earlier. Starting from character creation, if you're a completionist like me who wants to access every unique weapon and bit of lore, then you're going to want to have this skill set. The game has 12 skills in total, and you'll be rewarded for specializing in specific ones as opposed to trying to do everything at the same time. And you only get 2 skill points each time you level up. So the first skill I'd recommend focusing on is lockpicking, because it lets you open locked containers and doors. And at level 1, there's also a perk which unlocks pickpocketing, and that then allows you to steal NPCs' key cards so you can go and rob their personal storage, which actually allows you to get some of the better quest rewards without even doing their quest line. The second most useful skill is hacking. Not only does it boost the damage that you deal to robots, but there's actually a lot of additional lore and information that's locked behind terminals. And some of that information can actually then be used later on in conversations as things that you know because you've read them. You guys are reading the terminals, right? Next is the speech skill. It comes up a lot during dialogue, and there's a lot of moments where you're forced into dialogue, and so having a high speech skill can open up more opportunities of how to navigate those situations. It also gives you another 5% damage boost against human targets per level. I'm also giving an honorable mention to the engineering skill, since it boosts the effectiveness of your armor, so you basically get more damage resistance, and you'll come across a lot of potential shortcuts and doors that need to be repaired before you'll be able to access them. Though if you want to ignore this skill entirely, I'd highly recommend grabbing the Brawly perk. This is a trait which lets you pull open any door you come across that needs the engineering skill to open. If you have the Brawly trait, you can just pull it open instead. So it will save you a lot of skill points in the long run. And with The Outer World 2, there is pretty much always a few options of how you do things, so you're never completely gate-kept from certain areas. But when it comes to like hacking and lockpicking, sometimes you are, which is why I kind of mentioned these skills as like the all-access skills that you're gonna want to focus on. Finally, I would recommend picking a combat skill. Next, we have tip number 8. Stealth has been massively improved in The Outer Worlds 2 compared to the first game. There's even a stealth kill button, but it's actually much slower to use it, so I would instead recommend just holding down a power attack ready as you approach the enemy you want to assassinate, and then just using that instead. It's going to save you a few seconds, which is much more helpful in stealth. You even now have access to noise devices that distract enemies, so you can easily sneak up on them and get that backstab damage. In fact, if you look at all the melee weapons and guns in your inventory, and on the bottom right, you can go ahead and inspect them, and the game will tell you how much additional stealth percentage based damage you're going to be doing with your stealth attacks. If you don't like math though, don't worry, the game will literally tell you if your silenced pistol attack or melee attack is strong enough to one-hit kill that enemy. If it's not, you can actually use the slow time dilation gadget, which you start the game with, to get a couple of melee attacks on them to kill them in one go. Next, we have tip number 7. You can steal anything in The Outer Worlds 2, and so long as nobody sees you do it, you're good. Just wait for people to turn their backs so they're not looking at you, and then you can blatantly steal everything that isn't nailed down. All these stolen goods do, however, count as being stolen. They'll be tagged in your inventory as stolen items. You cannot sell them back to the person you stole them from, but you can use those items in crafting, you can consume them, or you can sell them to other people at a discount. Now, if you do get caught stealing, the guards will try and arrest you when they next see you. However, it is pretty easy to use the speech skill to reduce the bounty, or even threaten them just to leave you alone completely. So stealing is really quite forgiving. It's the loss in reputation that hurts the most, so really just don't get caught stealing in the first place. Next, we have tip number 6. While we're on the subject of stealing, you'll find that pickpocketing is invaluable. There's a lot of big quest decisions in The Outer Worlds 2 that reward you with incredibly powerful weapons or armor, but the problem is that you can only choose one person to side with. But pickpocketing solves that problem. To unlock the pickpocketing skill, you need level 2 in lockpicking skill, and then you can get the pickpocketing perk. And now to pick someone's pocket, just stand behind them, hold it down for 3 seconds, and then you can access all of their valuables. There's not even a chance of getting caught, it's just as long as no one can see you. Using this on important NPCs can bypass some pretty huge quest lines to straight up steal their rewards for yourself by robbing their ID card and then just accessing their personal storage. Next we have tip number 6. It is well worth befriending factions and selling to the same vendor over and over again, because each vendor has a perk called Wholesale Spender. This means that if you sell 500 bits of items, you can unlock a 20% discount for selling and for buying. This is amazing if you have a specific unique item that you want to buy from them, or just in general if you want to sell all of your stuff for 20% more. And this is pretty easy to do since you have no carry weight in the Outer Worlds 2. Next we have tip number 5. While you can sell your junk by holding down the sell all junk button, you can also scrap it for crafting materials at a workbench. Now these crafting materials are essential for making medication, ammunition, lockpicks and hacking tools. So before scrapping, you should always hover over the items at a workbench to see what you're actually going to get for scrapping them. I'd recommend only scrapping junk though. Armor and weapons are much more valuable, so you should just sell them. Next we have tip number 4. Companions are a big part of the Outer Worlds 2, and they level up with your character as you level. And unlike most RPG games, the companions in Outer Worlds 2 are actually extremely effective. In fact, any kills they get in combat also reward you with experience. And as you level up your companions every 5 levels, you'll be able to select from 2 different perks. And it's best to pick the perk option that complements your personal playstyle. Companions also have their own quest lines, and trust me when I say that they are worth completing early on if you can, since they unlock both armor and weapon upgrades that massively boost that companion's effectiveness in combat, and just the amount of utility they offer in different damage types. You can also go back and swap between those different upgrade options at any time, which is useful if you know you're going up against some robots and maybe you want some more electrical damage. Companions also have active abilities that can be used in and out of combat, and they recharge over time. There's also like items and armor bits you can also get that further reduce the ability recharge time. And these abilities range from healing your party to drawing the enemy fire and acting like a tank. Just make sure that you don't forget to use them during battle, because they are extremely effective. And the leadership skill also directly affects your companion's capabilities. So if you want to play this game just sitting back and doing nothing while your companions do all the killing, just invest in the leadership skill. One thing I do recommend fixing is the default option for the companions' helmets, which you will notice once you upgrade their armor that they start wearing helmets and you can't see their faces anymore. And this can cause you to miss out on their reactions and emotions during dialogue. So I highly recommend just going to the menu to gameplay and then toggling the companion helmets to be off so you can actually see their face and their reactions in dialogue. It's a huge part of the game. And obviously there are certain choices and decisions that they will weigh in on, and they will remember what you say. So it's worth thinking before you respond to them. Now a quick tip for number 3 is if you go into the settings and go to gameplay, you'll actually find there's an aiming slider and you can choose how much aimbot you want in your game. I don't know if you're a good FPS player or a bad one. I don't know. Just put all of these settings on max and you will be basically glued to the target, and it's pretty hard to miss it. Next we have tip number 2, which is probably one of the most valuable tips in this video if you weren't aware of it. If you didn't know, there are 6 different damage types in the Outer Worlds 2. And if you are playing on the harder difficulties or trying to kill some of the tougher enemies, it's actually really beneficial to understand what damage type works well against what enemy type. So I'm going to briefly break down and explain them, and maybe favorite this video so you've always got it as a reference point. Firstly, we have the physical ballistic damage. This works well against pretty much any enemy in the game unless they have armor on. You'll see that there's a yellow bar in front of their red health bar, and you'll notice you're doing a lot less damage. And that's why physical damage is weak versus armor. Next, we have plasma damage, which applies burn, dealing continuous damage over time. And stacking burn causes the target to explode to other enemies nearby. It is specifically effective against any fleshy targets, which is normally raptors or unarmored humans. Corrosion damage, however, applies vulnerable, which lowers the enemy's armor as it builds up. So the more corrosive damage you apply to someone, the more it stacks until it completely removes the target's armor bonus, causing them to take additional bonus damage. So corrosion damage is great against armored foes. And then we have shock damage, which is super effective against robot enemies. It can also stun anyone, which basically means they can't move or attack you for a few seconds. And then there's frost damage, which is essentially just a debuff, so it really slows enemies down to the point where they become frozen and then they just stand in place for a period of time. Then we have N-ray damage, which can even radiate to nearby enemies too. It's basically a stacking damage type, and once you reach the full percentage, they will immediately die irrelevant of their health bar. So it's great for groups of enemies, but not very good versus robots. And finally, we have tip number 1, which is just to explore the world. There's actually a lot of quests that take you through all of the main locations in the Outer Worlds too. So if you just naturally follow the story, you'll find a lot of interesting things, but there's a lot of unmarked buildings and locations on the map that the story doesn't take you to. So I would recommend just exploring around and trying to go inside those locations and seeing what you find, because that's actually where quite a lot of the unique weapons and armor sets are hidden, and also the keys you need to open the strong boxes, which also hold unique weapons. If you want another guide on the best armor sets and weapons you can get early on at the start of the game, check out this next video where we go over it in detail, because there's a few of them that you will miss depending on your choices.